I'm Dwight Drummond. Tonight, the party leaders have spent 36 days pitching you on why they deserve your support. Now it's all in the hands of the voters. The leaders have cast their ballots, so have millions of Canadians, but it may take a little longer this time to determine a winner. Plus,
40 minutes to wait to exercise your right to vote is not very much time.
It's taken me an hour and a half to vote. I just think it's unacceptable.
Hey, we're here to vote. We're going to stay as long as it takes to vote.
we'll have the latest on how things are going at polling stations in the GTA. Also, what to expect if you're still heading out to vote. And
there are no security features present on these documents.
From staff training to fake documents, business owners still have lots of concerns about the vaccine passport system that's about to take effect in Ontario. They have crisscrossed the country for weeks, bumping fists and elbows, making speeches, and trying to drum up support for their vision of Canada. Now, the nearly 40-day campaign marathon is over for the party leaders as they wait for voters to have their say. But as Marina von Stackelberg explains, determining the winner may take a little longer this election.
At a gymnasium in Montreal with his 3 children, Liberal leader Justin Trudeau voted this afternoon in his riding of Papineau. In the southern Ontario city of Bowmanville, Conservative leader Aaron O'Toole voted this morning with his wife in their riding of Durham. Across the country, other Canadians cast their ballots too. Polls opened first in Atlantic Canada.
It was good. It was quick and maybe a bit more organized than usual.
I wanted to wait right till the last minute. That's when you hear everything.
Then further west.
A lot of people in a lot of places don't get to vote.
In Winnipeg, some exercise their democratic right for the first time.
Yeah, I just turned 18, so I thought it was pretty important to get my first one in and get it done right.
In some areas of Toronto, voters had to line up for over an hour, in part because there are fewer polling locations this time. Spots used in previous elections weren't big enough to meet pandemic safety requirements.
The line moved pretty quickly. It started moving right at 9:30, and yeah, I got my vote in.
It's okay. It's a sunshiny day, and we're exercising our right to vote, so it's great.
Some Canadians didn't wait until today to cast their ballot.
All right, here goes.
NDP leader Jagmeet Singh voted in advance polls in his BC riding of Burnaby South. The leaders of the Bloc Québécois, Green Party, and People's Party of Canada also voted early. Elections Canada says a record 5.8 million people went to advance polls, and more than 1 million Canadians also applied to vote by special ballot.
Those ballots will not be counted till tomorrow. The reason is we need to do a series of verifications.
Elections Canada warns it could be days before all of those special ballots are counted. That could have an impact on tonight's results. In the last election, 9 ridings were decided by less than 500 votes. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Ottawa.
For many in the GTA, the voting experience was a smooth one, but there were reports of delays and hiccups for some. Chris Glover joins us live in the riding of Spadina, Fort York. And Chris, the lineup at that particular polling station has been one of the longest in the city today.
And it remains one of the longest in the city right now, Dwight. I just spoke with some people at the front of the line. They've waited for an hour and a half, and I want to give you a sense of just how long this line is. You see it stretches down Fort York Boulevard here all the way to Bathurst. And Elections Canada was here earlier saying that this could take 2 hours for voters to get in to cast their ballot. And as Marina was just saying, part of the reason for all of this is fewer polling stations. With nearly 75% fewer polling stations than in 2019, Spadina, Fort York had some of the longest voting lines in the city.
No good. It's ridiculous, actually.
I'm thinking I should have brought a snack.
In the 2019 election, the average Canadian voter took about 7 minutes to vote. But amid a pandemic, with Elections Canada getting shut out of many regular polling places, this time some voters waited hours.
Yeah, we might have to leave and come back later. We'll see. I don't anticipate the line being any shorter later, though, either.
This line was at Oriole Park Public School in Toronto, St. Paul's.
We were informed maybe like half an hour into it that 3 of the voters' lists hadn't arrived yet.
Voter Emily Garant says that snafu contributed to the long wait.
My understanding was these things were supposed to be set up the night before so that everyone was ready to go. So it's taken me an hour and a half to vote. I just think it's unacceptable.
No line here at this school in Toronto Danforth, but a sign telling voters, go away.
I arrived there to discover that there was no polling station at the school and several other very confused people milling about.
Victoria Patterson got 2 voter cards and didn't notice they showed different addresses for her polling place.
There's a number of people who aren't, the most motivated voters or perhaps have mobility and accessibility issues, and I'm concerned about them and whether or not they were able to make it.
But clearly many did make it successfully today, and no surprise what the issue was for so many.
To me, it's pandemic response, mandatory vaccinations. It's basically COVID related right now.
I think it's bad timing. I don't think it should be done during a pandemic whatsoever.
Still, even if the timing was off for some and the lines long for many, the right to cast a ballot was too important to miss.
I'd rather it be faster, but it's worth it.
I'm willing to wait as long as it takes to mark my X on my ballot.
11 ridings in the GTA have fewer than half as many polling stations as they did in 2019. The most dramatic decline in the whole country, Dwight, is Toronto Centre, with fewer than 84% of the amount of polling stations that they had in 2019 this time around. That is definitely causing these long lineups, and Elections Canada says it's because some of their traditional places where they would have people vote just aren't big enough to accommodate physical distancing.
We will see how this all affects voter turnout. Thank you, Chris. Now, another difference this election, get out the vote campaigns have had to adjust because of the pandemic, and some are worried that could lower voter turnout. Natalie Kalata now with that part of the story.
Long lineups, fewer polling stations, and a pandemic. Getting out the vote this year is more challenging.
This year, many of the organizations, including political parties that would give them rides to the ballots, are not available this year.
Watts is worried that could mean fewer seniors turning up at the polls.
80% of all seniors vote in every election. But I think this year, the barriers to voting are so significant that we will see a shift in voting patterns.
Younger voters don't have access to the Vote on Campus program for this election, so groups like Future Majority have been collecting pledges to vote.
For post-secondary students, it can be really difficult to, be able to access transit that allows you to get off campus to an off-campus polling station. The other thing is that it's quite difficult for young Canadians to voice their concerns in their home ridings if they're unable to vote at a satellite poll on campus.
She's not the only one worried about accessibility.
For any number of people with disabilities in Canada, we do not have barrier-free accessible voting. We do not have a plan in place to get us there.
The pandemic is also amplifying already existing barriers for those with disabilities.
Disproportionately, they're poor. A lot of public transit is not accessible to them. I can't say whether Elections Canada, in the reduced number of polling centers that there are in polling stations in some ridings, to what extent that they've ensured that these are immediately on accessible transit routes.
As for those mail-in ballots,
if they have any disability that relates to marking your own ballot, if it's a paper ballot, you've got a terrible choice. Either go to a polling station where you face barriers or use a mail-in ballot where you face barriers.
Voting continues until 9:30 tonight. Natalie Kalata, CBC News, Toronto.
Canada Votes 2021, our election CBC News special begins at 6:30 right here on CBC Television and on CBC News Network. You can also watch on CBC Gem, cbcnews.ca, and the CBC News app. The city releasing numbers today for its Days of Vaction campaign. The mayor says nearly 7,600 vaccine doses were administered over the 4-day vaccine push. It was focused on areas of the city where there's been lower uptake. Crews fanned out to more than 90 locations, including subway stations, parks, and malls. The city is hoping to fully vaccinate 90% of residents. You'll have to show proof of vaccination to get into gyms, movie theaters, and restaurants starting Wednesday. The health minister acknowledged an increased threat of fraudulent documents. As Dale Manuknak reports, if they're out there, they'll be tough to catch.
The restaurant industry is still recovering from lost business during the pandemic due to fluctuating closures of indoor and outdoor dining.
I, for one, don't want to turn away business. I can't afford to lose a sale.
On Wednesday, another challenge, proof of vaccination that staff who've never done it before will have to verify.
I think it is unreasonable. I mean, it's one thing to check for age and majority. You know, we're all used to reading a driver's license and, you know, determining if someone's of legal age to drink. This is a little bit more invasive.
Forensics document examiner Shabnam Preet Kaur says that Ontario's vaccine certificate is easy to forge.
There are no security features present on these documents. So these documents are basically the PDF document.
Preet Kaur says anyone with basic editing tools can manipulate the document. Those looking for fraudulent certificates can check font style and size and spacing. It will be much harder when QR codes are rolled out in October.
It's actually difficult to manipulate QR code because for that you need special skills. And most of the people, they don't have those kind of skills.
Paper documents will still be accepted after October 22nd. Meanwhile, police haven't been directed to verify individuals' vaccination status, but if someone is using a forged document, there could be serious consequences.
Trying to use it to enter a premise where you need that certification and you know that it is false, then that is a criminal offense.
The Ministry of Health says individuals providing inaccurate or falsified information to a business could receive a ticket for $750 or a penalty up to $100,000 and up to a year in jail. As of September 17th, the Canada Border Service Agency has intercepted 139 fraudulent COVID-19 test results and 6 fake vaccine credentials. If a small number of people are using fake documents to enter places that require vaccination, it won't impact the spread of the virus in a significant way.
It probably won't be a significant issue unless, of course, there's a large number of people in that who are faking certificates and all happen to be in similar indoor venues.
Dale Manukduk, CBC News, Toronto.
Drug maker Pfizer is seeking approval for its COVID-19 vaccine to be given to children between the ages of 5 and 11. The company says it will ask for authorization in Canada, the U.S., Europe, and other places. Pfizer is pointing to clinical trials that show the vaccine produces an immune response in that age group. It's already authorized here in Canada for kids 12 and up. One expert says this is good news for parents worried about their kids being sick at school.
When we can actually start vaccinating these children depends on how quickly the vaccine actually receives approval. But one assumes that at some point during this school year, we will be doing vaccines in elementary school children, which is going to make school at least slightly less worrisome for parents and hopefully decrease some of the anxiety that a lot of parents have been feeling about this school year.
Pfizer is already looking at data for even younger children. It's looking at how well the vaccine works in children 2 to 5 years of age and even children between 6 months and 2 years of age. The company may have that information by the end of the year. Some positive news today about the return of school sports and clubs. Toronto Public Health says schools can gradually allow extracurricular activities to return. Both the TDSB and the Toronto District School Board, Catholic District School Board, paused extracurriculars earlier this month. Toronto Public Health says for now it's recommending schools prioritize the resumption of lower risk and outdoor activities. It adds that as schools establish their routines, other clubs, activities, and teams may return. TPH says school bands may also return, but without wind or brass instruments. As a former sax player, Colin, I'm not sure I like that. Just kidding. What's going on today? I mean, another beautiful weekend, Colin.
Yeah, beautiful weekend. Yeah. Pretty nice day today as well. Now everything changes. We're headed towards fall, officially beginning on Wednesday, and some big changes coming in the weather pattern as well. So getting into some off and on showers, pretty isolated later on this evening and overnight. A little batch tomorrow morning, pretty light in nature, but things become more organized as we get into Tuesday night and especially Wednesday with a more widespread rainfall. And some of the amounts I'm going to show you could be rather significant, and a temperature shift as well. Now, it's still mild into tonight and tomorrow, but after that, we're going to find our daytime highs, instead of being a little above seasonal, a little below seasonal. So current temperatures, yes, very mild. The humidex values, at least for Windsor, St. Catharines, have been in the low 30s, so there's some humidity as well. Well, that moisture is going to be coming our way. So you can see it's kind of spotty in nature. I want to show you, though, the same system north northwestern Ontario, they've got some rainfall warnings there, and they're looking at 50 to 60 millimeters. We could be seeing amounts like that or even enhanced from there. So it's not too organized as we go into Tuesday night, but watch how this really fills in into Wednesday. And Wednesday night, it's still lingering. Some of the models, it's still a few days out, but look at wanting to put 60 millimeters in London and 62 in Toronto. Okay, we're going to be watching that carefully, and I'll fine-tune it more into tomorrow for you further. Mild tonight, as I say, still mild tomorrow, above seasonal at this time of year. Seasonal highs 20 degrees, so that gives you a marker there. There we go with fall coming in on Wednesday, and there goes that little dip that we're going to see in those temperatures, Dwight.
Just a little dip.
That's all.
Thank you, Colin. Toronto's latest homicide victim is being remembered for his service to his community tonight. 27-year-old Thane Murray was shot and killed on Saturday, and police say they still don't know why. Greg Ross reports.
It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking for the community.
This memorial marks the location where 27-year-old Thane Murray was shot and killed Saturday night. Once again, the Regent Park community is coping with yet another senseless death due to gun violence.
You never get to heal because it's constantly, for living here for 32 years, it's constantly death after death.
Police say Murray and two of his friends were shot by 4 gunmen just before 9 o'clock Saturday night.
Multiple gunshots rang out in the area. From the looks of the scene, there was well over 50 shell casings that officers had located.
Murray was pronounced dead on the scene. The other 2 victims, both in their 20s, were taken to hospital. Both are expected to recover. Police say Murray and the other 2 victims were walking here on Oak Street when they were approached by the shooters. It happened just a couple of blocks away from the Regent Park Community Center where Murray worked. Murray is well known to the residents in Regent Park because of his work at the community center.
I cannot get rid of his smiles, the brightness of his face.
Both of these women say their children were regulars at the community center and looked up to Murray.
My kids went there, like they knew my kids since they were 6 years old.
My son, when he was young, and he was helping him with the soccer. And there is wall climbing in the community center. He helps them, like a little stuff that makes a difference, that as a human being, he touched so many lives.
Police say they aren't sure what the motive for the shooting was or if the 3 victims were targeted. They say the 4 suspects were wearing dark clothes and masks to hide their faces. Anyone with information is asked to contact police. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
Some changes coming for travelers going to the U.S., but only if you are flying. The U.S. will begin allowing travelers from 33 countries to fly into the country in November, but there will be conditions. All foreign nationals must provide proof they are fully vaccinated, and they must have a negative COVID-19 test done within 3 days of departure. As for the U.S.-Canada land border, the Biden administration has extended current restrictions until at least October 21st. World leaders are gathering in person for a meeting of the United Nations General Assembly in New York after last year's all-virtual version. Playing high on this year's agenda, boosting the fight against climate change, Afghanistan, and ending the pandemic. Chris Reyes has this report.
COVID restrictions still apply to the biggest annual diplomatic gathering in the world, but unlike last year, more than 100 world leaders and guests will be at the United Nations all week for the general debate of the 76th session of the UN General Assembly. In a bid to attract a younger audience, the Korean pop sensation BTS kicked off the high-level week with a speech from the General Assembly Hall encouraging young people to choose hope over fear in the face of so many world challenges. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson and Secretary General Antonio Guterres held a closed roundtable meeting this morning. The UK is hosting COP26 in November, a big UN climate summit, and both leaders said that they convened the roundtable to sound the alarm bells on that process and to keep it from failing. Secretary Guterres said countries are on track to miss crucial climate targets, putting the world on the path of catastrophic disasters.
It is a wake-up call to instill a sense of urgency on the dire state of the climate process ahead of COP26. Everybody must do their job. Developed countries and emerging economies must be able to contribute, all of them, for the possibility of reaching net zero in 2050.
I think that Glasgow COP26 is a turning point for the world, and it's the moment when we have to grow up and take our responsibilities.
Climate action, the pandemic, vaccine equity, Afghanistan are just some of the issues that world leaders are expected to address this week. U.S. President Joe Biden is scheduled to speak tomorrow. Leaders will be waiting to see if he'll send a strong message and commitment on climate action. It will be the first time that Biden will address the 193-member body as president. Chris Reyes, CBC News, New York.
Lava continues to ooze down hillsides a day after the volcanic eruption on the Spanish island of La Palma off northwest Africa.
Ahí hay 8 metros de lava.
Just look at that. Fiery rivers of molten lava have swallowed up dozens of homes and left a wide trail of destruction in the countryside. No one was injured, but authorities had to quickly evacuate around 5,500 people on Sunday. The lava is expected to keep flowing for weeks, but is unlikely to pose any immediate danger to local residents. Spain's prime minister is praising scientists monitoring the increased seismic activity for warning about the imminent eruption. La Palma, with a population of around 85,000, is one of 8 volcanic islands in Spain's Canary Islands archipelago. All right, Colette, you saying it's over? This little blast of summer we got as we head. Summer is actually going to end on the official day this year on Wednesday?
Yes, I mean, but we had, you're right, such a beautiful last weekend of summer and very summer-like. Nice conditions again today as well. And now things are just kind of changing as the system is taking shape. The problem with it, or if you see it as a problem, is that we're really going to have this kind of low sort of cutoff, and it basically stalls in the upper atmosphere over top of us. And that's why we could see those rain totals, especially on Wednesday, kind of building up. So for northwestern Ontario, yes, there are some severe thunderstorm warnings in here, watches. This wide area, though, the green is for rainfall. So rainfall warnings associated as this kind of system comes together. And that's why I was saying earlier in the show, 50, 60 millimeters, some of the models are showing, and some even enhanced from there as we get through Tuesday night and Wednesday into Thursday morning. So I'll keep you, apprised of what's happening with that situation. For now, we know it's still mild overnight tonight. Some isolated showers working their way in, a few tomorrow morning, and they're pretty widespread here. It just gets more organized as we get towards tomorrow night and, like I say, midweek, just in time for fall. And in time for fall, the temperatures will start to come down a little bit with those daytime highs there too, Dwight.
And summer's over just like that. Thank you, Colette.
You're welcome.
That is our show for tonight. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 6. We'll leave you with shots of people lining up in TO, still waiting to exercise their right to vote. If you haven't gone out, there's still time. Polls close at 9:30. And if you're still waiting in line, don't worry.